So we're going to look at sales forecasting on Excel. And so Excel makes life so much easier. Instead of doing these by hand, you can have Excel pretty much do all the work for you. But I highly recommend that you do some of these by hand, because research has shown when you do stuff by hand, you're more engaged and you learn it better and you gain a better understanding. So I would do a couple of these, or if you have a complete understanding, then you know yourself better than anyone. But I will show you some examples on Excel. And so the first one here, we got Wonder Woman owns a small sandwich shop called Wonder Lunch. She has developed a sales history for the first week of March using total sales and guest served. Help Wonder Woman calculate her average sales per guest for each day of the week and calculate her totals. So what we can do here is we can start off with the totals. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to sum this up. And you can do it a couple ways. You can type equals and then type in sum, double click it, make sure the formula or functions there, and then you just highlight the ones we want to sum, close the parentheses, and there you go, we just sum the sales. You do the same thing for the guest. Sum these up, make sure you include all the boxes. There's one hidden there, so let's make sure you include that one. And just double check this one, D14. All right. And then when we do the averages, we're just going to tell Excel, hey, average sales, we're going to divide that by guests served, hit enter. And then since this formula, we want to use the same one over and over again, we're just going to drag that down where that little box is right there. Drag it down, and then it will do the rest for us. And we've just had Excel pretty much do this whole problem for us. And we have the every day, we have the average sales per guest. And just a real quick one, if you didn't watch the video that was by hand, the word per is like division. So when you see this, you can say average sales divided by guests. And that's exactly what we did. And then by hand on this one, you don't want to tally this or total this column here to get this number. This is just going to be the sales, the total sales divided by the total guests. And this gives us the overall for the week. And so it's different data points that you could use further in depending on what scenario. Example 2. Again, we have a similar problem here. We're looking at sales variance, and we have percentage sales variance. And then we have some totals down here. We're not going to total these columns. We're going to use the same formula we're going to do here. And variance is just going to be this year's sales. So this column right here, each one of them minus last year's sales. And so we can start off by doing the first one. Equals always tells Excel what to do. This year minus, not equals, minus last year, hit enter. And what we're going to do is I'm going to drag this down. It's going to tell us what to do. But since we don't have that last row in there, it's going to come up with 0 right here. We need to fix that. So we need to get these numbers right here. We're going to total them. And we're just going to do sum. So equals sum. Double click it, highlight all the numbers, close it. All right, so we have that. Now it's coming up with pound symbols, and that's just because it doesn't know what to do because it doesn't have a value right here. So we're going to tell Excel to get us a value here. So we're going to sum this column. And there you go. It fixes it automatically because that formula was already punched in. And then so these red parentheses ones is just Excel way of saying these are negatives. And if we check it, just make sure it's consistent. May's sales this year are definitely less than last year, so that would be a negative variance, sales variance. Next thing we want to do is we want to figure out the percentage of the sales variance. And the formula for that is going to be variance divided by sales from last year, enter. Now notice that this is in decimal form. So what we're going to do is we're going to tell Excel to do the rest of these for us. But since they're not in decimal form, we're going to keep them highlighted, right click, go to format cells, and we're going to go to number, and the 2 decimal places is fine. And we are going to, percentage, whoops. And go to percentage, and do we want 2 decimal places? Let's do, yeah, we can do 2 decimal places, okay. And hit okay, and it will fix them for us into 2 decimal places for us. And anytime you want to change a number, that's pretty much how you do is the format cells. And I'm pretty sure you can change the way these look too. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so right now we can make it look like a negative number. If that's better for you, you're like, oh, I read that better, because not many people understand the parentheses and the red, but you can fix it any way you want that you like and helps you understand better. Example 3, we got Lois Lane operates Lane's House, a mid-priced restaurant with a $42 check average. Her clientele consists of business people and tourists visiting her city. Based on the historical sales records she keeps, Lois Lane believes her business will achieve a food sales increase next year of 3% per month for each of the first 6 months of the year. She feels this increase will be the result of increases in guest counts, not check averages. Prepare the revenue estimates for Lane's House. So basically what we're going to do is we are estimating an increase in the future, and we want to kind of anticipate what our revenue is based off of that increase. So we have all the guest counts from last year. You always need previous data so you can predict the future. And we have a guest count percent increase estimate, and we need that to continue on to get guest count forecast and the original check average. We actually already know as well. So we're going to fill out what we know. The first thing we know is that we have a 3% increase for every month here. Let's do 3%, 3%. And if you want, you don't have to keep typing in. So you do equal 3%. And so it is in decimal. We'll have to change that. But if you send it down, it will do it for you. Go to format cells. Percentage, leave it as 2, so it fixes those for you as well. I'm going to make these the same so it's consistent. There you go. So we have the percents there. Check average was $42, so we're going to put 42 in there and send it down through all of them. And also, I don't like how it says 42. I'm going to tell it to give me a number with 2 decimal places so it looks like money. And if you want the money sign in there, you go to currency. And now it looks like $42. So it looks better. What we're going to do here is we're going to use the guest count last year, and we're going to use the 3% increase to determine what the guest count forecast is. There's 2 ways you can do this. You could figure out what 3% of January's guest count was of last year and then add it on. Or you can also just say equals guest count times, if you do 1 point, whatever the percentage is, and which is going to be 0.03 here, because 3% as a decimal is 0.03, you're telling Excel, and if you did it by hand, you're saying that we want 100% of the value, so we want the whole 5,870, and we're going to add on the 0.03%, and Excel is going to give us that amount. And so we can send this down because it's going to do it for all of them. And we need the total here in order to get this one. So I didn't drag it down because there's nothing there. So we need to total this first, get the sum of our 6 months, close the parenthesis. Now I can send this formula down and it should give me that amount. Another thing I want to do is these decimals. Let's change that. We are going to go with number, no decimal places. And I'm going to use a separator. I like that personally because the commas help me understand the numbers at a quick glance. Cool. And then what we want to do now is, since we know what the guest count forecast is, so these are the amount of guests and we might see in the future in the 6 months of next year with the 3% estimate. Is this perfect? Is it going to be exactly? Probably not, but we know around that ballpark and what we could expect. So now we can figure out how much revenue we're going to bring in. If each person or each check is $42, then we can take our guest count and times it by the original check average, and that will give us the revenue forecast. So we'll do equals guest count forecast times original check. It equals, anytime you get a pound symbol, not enough room. Just open up the column a little bit. And then let's drag this down, and it should do all of them for us. So Excel obviously makes life a lot easier, but I would not become reliant on it because you're not really thinking about it. You're thinking about the first one, but after that, after you drag down, you're having Excel do all the work for you, and that doesn't really help you understand or learn any of this material. Next one. Again, kind of a similar situation. We have a guest count from last year. We have sales from last year. We're going to need to figure out the check average for each month. And then we will figure out the weighted, I think that's going to be the weighted check average down here. So for the year. And then we are going to use, it says guest count forecast. Anytime I see that, I always wonder, okay, is there going to be an increase or decrease? We want to know what the future number is, or the future value. And so we have a guest count from last year. So in the problem, hopefully you read it. I would maybe pause the video and read the problem because this is a big one. And just for time's sake, I'm going to not read it. But I do see right here a 4% increase in guest counts. So I know that my increase here is going to be 4%. The weighted check average here is going to be whatever number we get down here, because this is going to be our weighted check average for the year. So whatever that value is, we'll put here, and it will be the same number all the way down. And then we have projected sales, which we are going to take our guest count forecast, and similar to what we did to the last problem, we're going to times it by the check average, and it's going to give us our projected sales, or what we might see a future forecast of. All right, so let's do these. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to total these values up. We are definitely going to need those for the year. So let's total up my year amount. And again, I got the pound symbol there, so I want to drag this over until it fits. Sum up the guest count. There you go. Check average. We want to divide the sales by the guest count. It's going to give us our check average, and if we drag this down, Excel will do all the hard work for us. All the values are in there. This is our weighted check average. If you saw from the LibGuide or do not know what a weighted check average is, it means it's over a time period. So this weighted check average is over a year, and since we want that value over here, we're going to do equals, and you can type the number in, but you can also just click the cell, and now it's going to punch it in there. And we want that same number all the way down. So I'm going to punch it in. Oh, all zeros. Let's see, E24. Did I miss that one? This one's E23. Oh, it did. It kept going down. All right, so let's redo that. Okay. Oh, F4 is the lock. No, wait, what's it doing? All right, hold on. Equals. All right, let's equals another thing. I'm pretty sure. Why does it keep popping out like that? If I do, if I click it again and I hit F4, it'll put the money signs in there and lock it. Now, if I drag down, it should keep them all the same. There you go. So the drag down, what the drag down does is it takes each box underneath the one you just did. So it was all 0 because it took these boxes here. If you do the lock, which is F4 on a Windows or PC, that locks in that value and then duplicates it. So that's what I just did. Next thing we want to do here is we want to get our guest count forecast. So we're going to do equals. We know for January, we have 5,800. And we're going to times that by 1 point something. What's our increase? 4%. So it's going to be 1.04. And then we can drag this one down because we have different values underneath of it. This is going to give us the guest count forecast for all of them. I see some decimals in there, so I'm going to format this cell to give us no decimals. There you go. And then the last one, projected sales, is just going to be our guest count forecast times each average check. And then we can drag that down as well, and that will give us all our projected sales. And that's it. And that's how Excel makes life a lot easier. The drag, make sure, so the drag thing is great, but as we saw with the $9.69, that when I first did it without the cell lock with the F4, it didn't work. So make sure you just kind of like glance over your numbers sometimes and see, make sure it makes sense. And so these numbers are all consistently within the same amount. And if you want, you can check the formulas up in the box right here. That's good. And that will help you from making mistakes.